a fan favorite, the voice, the play-by-play voice of the New York Jets. So we're going to bring him on now. Bob, this is Tyson. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, man. We really appreciate it.
No worries. How are you?
Bob, we're doing great, man. And like I said, I gave you a little bit of an intro, and you're obviously a fan favorite, and you're ESPN radio play-by-play voice for the Jets. And it's like any big play that happens with the Jets, we always want to hear it on the radio. We always want to hear your call. So, as a broadcaster, as an announcer, what is that like for you? Do you find yourself getting caught up in these games, or do you try to stay like kind of calm, or how does that work for you?
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm a fan like anyone else. Fan, and I know so many people in the organization, and I know how their lives are impacted by whether or not, this team wins these dumb football games, that you get caught up in it like anybody else would. So, yeah, I mean, it's, you can't fake the enthusiasm. I mean, you have to be genuinely enthusiastic. And, I think hopefully Jet fans realize that I'm being as professional a broadcaster as I can be. But, in my heart of hearts, I'm one of them.
No, and once we announced that you were coming on tonight, man, all the fans were so excited because we all you're like our voice on the radio. It's so like your passion, your enthusiasm, and your honesty. When the times get tough, you don't pull any punches, which we always appreciate. As you look back over the years, do you have any favorite memories that stick out, like covering the Jets?
Well, calls like that or games like that one, a big win against the Patriots is always going to be something that you're going to remember, and certainly the playoff win against the Patriots, when they were over 2 touchdown underdogs up there was a great one. The playoff win in San Diego that put them in the divisional round when they won in overtime and had this really amazing back and forth win. There are a lot. I mean, it's hard being a Jets fan. I get that they haven't had the success that certainly, they're the king of their own division has had. But over the last 16 years, we've had a pretty good run. I mean, the first 9 years we did the games, at least Marty and myself, they were basically a 2 out of every 3 years playoff team and went to a couple of championship games. So we've had, probably more memories than people that don't follow the Jets would be led to believe.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, we got a little spoiled with the Rex Ryan run, and there's other times, even with Herman Edwards, every team made a run with Mangini. Are there any favorite players that you like to cover over the years, the guys that kind of stuck out, whether it was Curtis Martin or Kevin Maguire or anybody like that?
Yeah, there have been so many. Nick Mangold, great guy. DeBrickashaw, it's a great guy. Chad Pennington, very easy to talk to. I've always dealt with the quarterbacks, right after the games are over. That's kind of my first assignment, is to go to the quarterback's locker. So I've always appreciated, in spite of the fact that some of those guys have had struggles on the field, Mark Sanchez never ducked it. No matter how bad it got, he always stood there and did the interview. Ryan Fitzpatrick never ducked it for 2 years. He always stood there and did the interview. So, I have a little bit of a soft spot for those guys that, were always there and understanding the job that I had to do. But there have been so many more good guys than bad. I mean, we've been blessed in this locker room that, especially that, the Mangini Tannenbaum tandem probably doesn't get quite the credit that they deserve for filling that locker room up for a long time with really good guys. And that was the core that then Rex Ryan took to back-to-back championship games. The kind of the heart and soul of the team that he had that got the championship games were, the character guys that they had in that locker room. The Damian Woodies of the world. Just can't get a better guy. Nick Mangold, as I said, those offensive linemen were great. And, we've been pretty lucky. We've had a lot of really easy, fun guys to deal with.
Yeah, and you got a couple new ones this year, or like a couple they acquired last year that we'll talk about later on as well, that will keep you on your toes. Bob, one thing that I loved about you was this offseason, Jet fans were kind of panicking, like, how are we going to get a quarterback? What are we going to do? Is it Kirk Cousins? Who is it going to be? And the Jets got Sam Darnold. What are your thoughts on this offseason, how the Jets actually got Sam Darnold?
I don't know that they ever, in a million years, thought that this was the way it was going to work out even after they made the trade. I think what they thought was they were probably going to have a decision, between Josh Rosen and maybe Josh Allen to make it at number 3. I don't think they ever thought that they were going to get Sam Darnold. I think they thought that the Giants might not take a quarterback. I think they did think that they were at least going to get their second choice by moving up. All along, they had Sam Darnold as their number 1 on their board. If the Jets had the number 1 pick in the draft, that's who they would have taken. So I think they believed, because their analysis was that Sam Darnold was the best player for them and the best quarterback in the draft, the most complete quarterback in the draft, they probably just assumed that Cleveland would think the same thing. Or that maybe if Cleveland was dumb enough not to take him, that maybe the Giants would be compelled to take him just because, I think their opinions of him were so positive. So the fact, even on draft night, I think they were still kind of pinching themselves. They're sitting there at number 3, and they're about to get the guy that they would have taken number 1. Part of it was their aggression got paid off. They made a trade you absolutely positively had to make to give up really what amounts to 2 second-round draft choices and Sheldon Richardson, and you end up with Sam Darnold and Jermaine Kearse out of that overall transaction. It's about as good as you can do. You'd be crazy not to do it, but they positioned themselves for it to work out, but I don't think they ever thought that it was going to work out the way it did work out.
No, in my opinion, they hit the jackpot, and it was great because as it all went down, anybody that follows you on social media, on Twitter, you could see you're trying to calm Jet fans down and explain the positives and the compensation that the Jets gave up and the position they put themselves in. And now you look at this quarterback competition, and it's this could be the best quarterback competition they've had in a long time, because you have Josh McCown, Teddy Bridgewater, who's kind of like an unknown due to his health, and then you have Sam Darnold. So do you think this could be the best competition they've had in recent memory? If you were to handicap it, if they were all just put based on their own resumes, it probably would be Bridgewater 1, Darnold 2, McCown 3, in spite of the fact that Josh McCown had the year he had last year, which surprised all of us. But Josh McCown is a career backup. That's what he is. Teddy Bridgewater is a playoff-level quarterback, or was when he was healthy, and probably on his way to getting even better before he wrecked his knee. So, and Sam Darnold, when you're the number 3 pick in the draft and you were number 1 on this team's board, this will be your team at some point. He's going to play this year. There's no doubt about that. So, in the micro version of looking at this, it'll be fun to, it will keep the preseason games interesting all the way through, and that's almost impossible. There's nothing worse than preseason football, but now no matter what quarterback is on the field, there's going to be a compelling reason to watch them in preseason. So selfishly, for my, it's tolerable. And then, we'll see who emerges. But that's the micro version. The macro version is this is Sam Darnold's team. This is his job, and it's just a question of when they feel like he's fully qualified to take it. But when they feel like he has gotten to the point where it's time for him to take it. And I'm sure there will be at some point during the early part of the season a time where whichever of those 2 other guys wins the job and may be out there to start the year, they're going to turn to Sam Darnold when they're not moving the ball, when they're struggling, if they get shut out in the first half, maybe they're a game or 2 below 500. Some circumstance is going to lead them to putting Darnold on the field. And then once they put Darnold on the field, that'll be it. They won't look back. It will become his franchise. It will become his team. And if all goes according to plan, you're going to watch him for the next 10 years from that point forward. Oops. Sorry about that.
Sorry
about that, Joe. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry, Joe. I blocked you out, Joe. Sorry.
No problem, Bob. I want to welcome you to the show. My name is Joe, and a part of what you talked about, Sam Darnold taking over and running this team eventually, is what's going to happen with Jeremy Bates when he installs this new offense. What are your expectations from Jeremy Bates in the Jets offense?
I mean, they're high. You know, they are entrusting the development of the guy that they think is going to remake their franchise for at least the next decade, if not the next decade and a half, to him. So I mean, you can make the argument, Todd Bowles is a defensive coach. We all know that. Now, he's the CEO. He's the head coach. He's deciding, along with management, who the offensive mind is going to be. But they have entrusted this job to Jeremy Bates. So you have a right as a Jets fan to have very high expectations for Coach Bates. And I think nobody's got higher expectations than him. He's really confident. And I talked to him last year a bunch. He believes in this system. He believes in this quarterback. I think he thinks that once they, over the next year or two, draft some more weapons and spend some money in free agency to put some more legit weapons around this quarterback, that he's only going to thrive with more guys to get the ball. Remember, next year they might have $100 million in cap space if they doctor it right. So they're really only just getting started acquiring players for this offense. But he has a lot of belief that this system is the system for Sam Darnold.
I do as well. I'm a big USC guy, and I think that Sam, I was excited when we drafted him. I thought he would flourish. But now that Jeremy has stepped in as well, just looking at his previous play calling duties, I think that he can really put some things together that's going to fit Sam. But like you said, it's the weapons. You know, how many things can they put around him? But looking at our wide receiver core right now, I see some guys that can do some things. You know, Robbie is definitely a guy that's emerging. He's getting better. I want to see him become more of a complete receiver. I think Curse is going to be big out there. But a lot of people are saying, who does Darnold have to throw to, you know, once he does become the starter? Do you think some may undervalue the Jets wide receivers?
I guess. I mean, you know, wide receiver to me, and I was having this debate with a Giant fan the other day because he was, you know, obviously moaning and complaining about when finally going to get Beckham signed. And, like, there's no fan base in all of sports that should understand more that you don't need a big-time diva wide receiver to win than Giant fans. I mean, look at the package of wide receivers they had on all of the Super Bowl winning teams. You know, Plaxico, who's kind of always a borderline Pro Bowl wide receiver, some really good years, Pro Bowl level years, other years just okay. He might be, when you look back on it, the best wide receiver that they had on any of those Super Bowl winning teams. The teams in 86 and 90, none of those teams had elite wide receivers on it. So I'm not a guy that believes that you have to have, you know, an A.J. Green, a Julio Jones, an Odell Beckham, so on and so forth on your team to win. I mean, Tom Brady has spent 15 years, you know, going on 20 years, taking a whole bunch of guys that don't do much of anything when they go elsewhere and turning them into Pro Bowl level players when they play with him. So to me, in this day and age, it's about the quarterback, and it's going to be about the development of this quarterback. So, yes, do I think the Jet wide receivers are good enough if Sam Darnold eventually gets in there and plays the way that they believe he's going to be able to play, and I do also, to be, you know, a productive offense? Yeah, now, you know, if a Julio Jones at some point hits free agency and falls in your lap and just would love to come play for the Jets, well, then, you know, it's not a bad thing to have a great wide receiver on your team. I just don't think it's as necessary as so many other people seem to think it is. I think the Jet wide receivers are probably overall underrated.
Once again, we're speaking with Bob Wischusen, who is so kind to give us a few minutes tonight. Bob, you know, on the defensive side of the ball, you know, Mo Wilkerson's gone, Sheldon Richardson's gone, Damon Harrison's gone. This looks like the defensive front is now Leonard Williams' group. This is his time to shine, his time to dominate game to the next level.
He needs to, because before he blinks, his next contract, which, I mean, that's the goal of any pro athlete, especially in this league, is to be productive enough to get to that second contract. He's only a couple of years away from that second contract. So, yes, I mean, he needs to, I think, and I do think that that's in him. I think that he has that ability. You know, if I had to bet on whether or not he's going to turn into a Pro Bowl player, I would bet yes on Leonard Williams. So, and yeah, obviously he's the focal point. I mean, now that Mo Wilkerson has, shot himself in the foot about as much as any pro athlete ever has in New York. I mean, he lost probably somewhere between $15 and $20 million with how he just dogged it the last couple of years. That example is not there to be set for Leonard Williams anymore, which is a good thing. You don't want, the kind of the young stud, who should be there for a long time, picking up any bad habits from anybody else that he's side by side with in the defensive line room. You want him out there with grinders. And I think they've done a pretty good job of getting now role-playing grinders to put around Leonard Williams.
Yes, I would absolutely agree with that as well. But my one question for the Jets defense is, where is the pass rush coming from? Where is the guy that's going to constantly get after it? And I'm looking at guys like Lorenzo Malden, Darren Lee, if he's moved around, I think can make an impact. And Jordan Jenkins possibly taking the next step, maybe becoming a better pass rusher as well. What are your thoughts on that? Who is a guy that you could possibly see emerging to become that pass rusher for the Jets?
Yeah, I still don't think that they have that. I mean, I think in order to get pressure on the quarterback, that's going to be the main weakness of their defense, is they are going to have to scheme it. They're going to have to send extra people. They're none of these guys that they have on the team, at least I don't believe, is eventually going to turn into kind of that one-on-one go beat you edge rusher. I don't think that they have that. That could be the focal point of next year's draft. You can't draft everything at once. So I could absolutely, now that the Jets have their quarterback, I could see next year if they have a top 10 pick, and they might. I don't think that anybody's going to pick this team to be a playoff team this year. So if they have another, 5-11, 6-10 type season, which is very possible, especially if you're developing a young quarterback, he's going to take a few licks this year and learn on the job. So if they are a top 10 pick type team next year, I could see edge rusher being, because I think the guys that they have right now, Bill Parcells used to refer to, players that were certainly good enough to be in the league, but not difference makers, as hold the fort guys. And I think the guys they've got on the edge right now are solid, NFL-worthy, soldiers that are going to have careers in the NFL, but they don't have a difference maker. I mean, I don't think any of these guys are going to become that difference maker. I might be wrong, and maybe I'd be happy if one of them proved me wrong, but I don't think that talent at that position is on this team.
I would agree there, and like you said, I'm still looking for a guy to become that difference maker, and I absolutely agree with you there as well that I think next year's draft and even free agency is something that will address pass rusher, because that is a major need on this football team. But when you look at the secondary, we did pick up their difference maker in Tremaine Johnson. I think he's going to do some big things. What are your thoughts about this Jets improved secondary, and could that help the pass rush?
That's the formula. And that's the Todd Bowles formula. When Todd Bowles was in Arizona as a defense coordinator, his defenses in Arizona with Patrick Peterson, they blitzed at the highest percentage of any defense in the NFL. Everyone looked at the Jets as being Rex Ryan's crazy blitz-happy defense. Todd Bowles' defense in Arizona blitzed for 7% more often than Rex's defense did in New York. So, yeah, his formula is in your face, man-to-man, face mask to face mask, bump and run corners, and as a result, freeing guys up in the front seven to go try and kill the quarterback and trying to come up with as many different ways to confuse from a coverage standpoint and confuse from a blitz standpoint. So that there's no doubt that they're looking at their personnel. And they're saying, how are we going to hit the quarterback next year? Well, we don't have the ability with the guys we have on our team. We don't have Von Miller. We don't have that bend the edge guy that can't be blocked. So if we're going to get the quarterback, we're going to have to do it through scheme, and we're going to have to do it through sending numbers. Well, how are we going to be able to send numbers after the quarterback unless we can cover one-on-one? So you go out and spend the money on Tremaine Johnson, and that's what they did. So Claiborne, Johnson, screen back in the slot the way he's supposed to be, and these two safeties, I think there's a pretty big talent drop-off from those five to the next level of guys they have on their team. Any injury to any of those five guys would be, I think, sorely felt. But if they can keep those 5 guys healthy and all on the field playing those roles, that's about as good a secondary as you're going to find. And, you know, that's Todd Bowles' formula. His formula is, if I don't have Von Miller, then I need these, 5 guys to be the back end of a defense that gives me versatility and can, do jobs one-on-one for me, so I free up bodies closer to the line of scrimmage to try and confuse the quarterback and go after him.
Yeah, and speaking of guys with extreme talent on our secondary, Jamal Adams is a guy that has really shown up since we drafted him. How much fun is it to cover a player like him? Because he's definitely out there and definitely all about sending messages.
Yeah, he's the personality that you would think he would be. And that's part of the reason they drafted him. I mean, he just loves football, and he's infectious in the locker room. And, they wanted to inject that back in their locker room. And I think picking him up has done that. He is a guy that I think his personality rubs off on a lot of different guys in that room. And I think he really takes a lot of pride, in, not only being in the NFL, but wearing this uniform and being in New York, and also knowing that they drafted him because they knew that he was going to provide that for him. And I think he takes that part of his role very seriously.
Yeah, and he's a lot of fun to watch too, Bob. I mean, he's a lot of fun, and he's very outspoken. He's got a little personality. He's giving some Jets some positive attention, a little bit of swag on the defense, which is fun to watch. As we head into training camp, what do you think fans should expect from the New York Jets for the 2018 season?
Well, last year was such a hard year because you didn't know how to feel when they would win a game or be overly competitive. I mean, everybody knew what their plan was last year, and that was to totally strip it down and start over again. And the only way you're really going to effectively start over again in the NFL is if you can get a quarterback. And so even though it was a really kind of hard year to go through where, you're always rooting for them every Sunday. I get that. If you're a fan, you want them to win. But at the same time, knowing that every win that you get moves you further and further away from what you know to have in order to, win in any sustained way in the NFL. Well, now that's gone. Now that's in the rearview mirror. I mean, now they've got their guy. You don't have to root against them anymore. You don't have to be happy when they lose. So I would say for a Jet fan this year, you're looking for as competitive a team as you could possibly hope for. I mean, you just want every game, hopefully on Sundays in the fourth quarter, to be close and to have a chance to win some and to have some fun outcomes. But in the grand scheme of things, I think you're looking for player development of young guys, and you want to see Sam Darnold go out there and show you at least the foundation of what we all think and hope he can be. And I think you're going to see. I think he's going to go out there. I think he's going to play. He's going to make some mistakes, and he might lose them a game or two. When Matthew Stafford was drafted number 1 overall by the Lions, they threw him out there, and he threw like 22 interceptions or something, and they were terrible. But it didn't matter. The outcome of the game was irrelevant because it was about letting him go make his mistakes and develop. And I think that Sam Darnold is, he's going to have moments like that this year. But if you see a competitive team and a team that's, that gives you reason to believe that they've found their quarterback, I'm not sure the overall record this season is all that important. I'm certainly not going to go into the season with any kind of expectation hanging on a certain, hey, they got to get to 8-8, they got to get to 9-7. Anything less than 10-6 is a failure. I don't see that. I think they're going to lose some games where you're still, even after a loss, going to come out of it with some positives. If Darnold goes out there and throws 2 or 3 touchdown passes and looks good and maybe almost leads a comeback. I mean, there's a lot of different ways it could play out where a loss still turns into a building block for the future. So, I wouldn't get hung up on results. I would ask yourself, are the guys that are going to be here for a long time, particularly the quarterback, passing the eye test every week? And if they are, then, they've set themselves up next year with a lot of money to spend. Next year and the year after could be when you really start to see that process return actual results in the win-loss column.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. As Jet fans, all the ones we talk to, it's like everybody's just excited. Like you said, you finally have, hopefully your franchise quarterback. you have all these young building blocks, whether it's Marcus May, Jamal Adams, Leonard Williams, all these guys. It's just we're excited. Now you just want to see progress, development, growth, and next year you see what happens. But it's just really, really exciting times. Bob, as a longtime fan, man, I want to thank you so much for calling. This is an honor because, like, we're such a huge fan of yours and the work you do and the passion you bring to the broadcast. So we want to thank you so much for your time tonight.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I'm glad I could join you guys. And, it was nice, all the Twitter that, said they were so excited that I was going to be calling in tonight. It's really not that big of a deal. So hopefully everybody, gets out and does something better with their weekend when the weekend rolls around and worrying about listening to me with you guys. But I appreciate it because all those nice words from the fans mean a lot to me and Marty. We say it all the time that, hopefully we've made a connection with the fans and, hopefully they realize that we appreciate them every bit as much, if not way more than they appreciate us.
Well, Bob, once again, thank you very much, and hopefully it's a great season, another exciting season in the booth for you guys.
Okay, guys. Thanks.
Have a great night.